Hi, this is John Pettigrew, and you're listening to Talking Through My Hat, a podcast that explores bookish businesses, the fantastic people who create them, and what those people have learned. I'm a hat wearer, a recovering editor, and the creator of Future Proofs, enabling editors and authors to work better online. To find out more, visit wearefutureproofs.com or follow me on Twitter at John_Pettigrew. Welcome to this episode of Talking Through My Hat. Before we get started, I do just want to again apologise for the audio quality on my end of this conversation. As with last week, I'm afraid I had to record this in the office in one of our meeting rooms, which is a bit echoey rather than where I normally do. I hope it doesn't detract from your enjoyment of what is a very interesting conversation with Emmanuel. Over to the episode. Welcome to this week's Talking Through My Hat. Today I'm talking with Emmanuel Kolade, the founder of Shulph, a book technology company focused on multi-format reading experiences. He comes from the technology industry, where he spent the last 17 years specialising in human-centred design to build digital products. Before founding Shulph, Emmanuel was a senior management consultant at PricewaterhouseCoopers, where he led the firm's digital experience practice to deliver digital transformation programmes to some of the UK and world's leading brands. He's also worked for a wide range of large and small businesses before that, from National Rail to digital payment companies as a designer and using experience consultant. So welcome to the podcast, Emmanuel.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Happy to be here.
Oh, pleasure. I guess we should start by asking how you describe Shulph to people who don't know it.
Yeah, so it's a bit weird. Shulph itself is, because we're trying to do something new, and I'm still struggling with this from a brand perspective, exactly how to describe this completely new thing. But I think the easier way for me, and how I tend to describe it these days, is Shulph is primarily a multi-channel reading experience company. And that sounds really vague, doesn't it? But what it really means is we empower readers to be able to access the content in their books between physical and digital.
Okay.
Essentially, our short-term mission is to enable people access whatever content they buy or they own in formats that suits their needs at the point where they need to consume that content.
Okay.
Because what you tend to find is people, buy a book, they invest in a format either as an audiobook, an ebook, or a physical book.
Yeah.
What tends to happen is, let's say you buy a book on release day, hardcover, you're excited about it, you've bought it. And what tends to happen is for the first 3 days, you're carrying that physical book around and you're excited. By the time you get to chapter 4, chapter 5, if you're someone, let's say, who commutes to work, for example, it starts to become quite the luggage in your laptop bag.
Yeah.
And what tends to happen is books like that, after chapter 5, end up on a bookcase somewhere at home to go die. The future we're designing with Shulph is one where, you've gotten on that train, let's say on your commute to work, you don't get a seat, let's say, right? You had that book on you, you put it in your bag, you don't get a seat because you need two hands to read a physical book in most cases.
Yeah.
In the future we're designing is one where you can put that book in your bag, whip out your phone and continue to read the same book one-handed. Okay. Or completely leave that book at home and still be able to summon it on your device when you're out and about. It's that kind of making the book responsive to your needs kind of as you go. Or if you're someone who is invested in an ebook on an iPad, let's say for my books, for example, and you're one of those people who worry about the glare from your device when you're in bed, you really want to read this book. If you've invested in a format, that means you won't read that book that night. But if you've gone the way we are doing it with Shulph, where you have multi-format access to that same title, you could put the iPad down for the day, get in bed, turn on the bedside lamp, pick up your print book, and continue reading that same book you were reading on your iPad previously. So it's all of a sudden we're making the book responsive to the needs of the customer.
Okay, that sounds great. And why did you set up Shulph? Where did that come from?
So Shulph came from frustrations I've had personally with books.
Okay.
So a couple of years ago, maybe 5-6 years ago, I found myself within the course of 1 year, there were 3 books that I bought twice. So
yeah.
I would go into Waterstones, pick up this book. Usually it would be a book that had to do with my day job, digital technology or design. And these books tend to be quite hefty, heavy. If you think about a typical Thames and Hudson book, or a Head of Zeus book, these kind of books are beautiful artifacts, but they tend to be heavy. So I will almost always only be able to read those books at home. But because it has to do with my day job, sometimes I want to read it on the tube. So what I end up doing is buying that again. So even though I've gone to Waterstones, picked up a physical copy, 2 weeks later, because I feel bad I haven't finished the book,
Yeah.
I would then go to Kindle and buy the same book again as a digital book.
Okay.
I did this for 3 books over the course of 1 year, and I thought, this can't be right. I can't. This is not sustainable, and I can't believe anyone hasn't tried to solve this yet. So I kept waiting. I waited a year or so, hoping others would try to, other existing book technology companies would try to solve this. No one did. I kept getting the urge to continue this behavior of buying books twice.
Yeah.
So I decided, you know what? If no one's going to do it, I'm just going to do it.
Okay. And what's the nub of that? Who do you work with? Do you working with the publishers, the retailers? Do you have to work with both? How does that kind of fit together?
So I'm disappointed to say that the original minimum viable product that we were going to launch Shulph with, which by the way launched November but was 2 years late. And even at that, we didn't launch our intended minimum viable product. We had to go more minimum than the initial minimum viable product. So that's quite disappointing. But the original minimum viable product for Shulph was supposed to be an open platform that works with all publishers and all retailers. Okay.
Okay.
But because those conversations, as I was saying earlier on before we started this, that conversations with publishers tend to go really slowly. And as a technology startup, I'm moving a lot faster than that. So what I've had to do is, because we're having these conversations with publishers and with retailers, and there's interest, but there's also inertia. Okay. And there's also, lots and lots of conversations. What Shulph was supposed to be when it was originally supposed to launch 2016, 2017, it was supposed to be a platform whereby, regardless of where you go to buy a book, but not regardless of any physical location where you bought a book, you would be able to get digital access to that same book. So if you went to like a Waterstones, for example, and you picked up a book, or any high street bookshop, you picked up a physical book. The idea was that regardless of where you've picked up that book physically, Shulph will get you digital access into that book, so you can always get the content. But conversations with both publishers and retailers went really, really slowly. So what I've had to do is scale back on that initial MVP and go, you know what, I'm going to try and sell some of those books myself. I'm going to take on the retailer role as well. So cut that part of it off for now, and launch the product, just to show what the experience can be for consumers. So at the moment, I'm working only with publishers, but the aim for me eventually is to go back to retailers when we have enough of the critical scale to say this is actually where we're going.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the thing for the retailers is it's an opportunity for them to sell digital products, which is always an issue, without having to set up a massive digital infrastructure of their own.
That's right. So that's one of the propositions we're taking to retailers was, wait, not only will you be continue to be involved in the proliferation of digital books and digital content and whatnot by playing this way, but not only will we enable you to be able to do that, but we will also bring tech into physical stores that allow people to do things like discovery, and then making impulse decisions to buy books in the store. Because what tends to happen is, a customer will go into, let's say, physical bookstore, and they will browse around. Maybe they're on lunchtime, they're browsing around. They don't have any specific title in mind, or even if they do, they would browse around for a bit, admire the aisle. Then they might see a title. They might get access to a title from an author they've never heard about. And they might say, oh, I've never heard about this author, I've never heard about this title, but something is drawn there. Maybe it's a synopsis at the back, or maybe it's just a cover art design. But in any case, what tends to happen in that scenario is people would then either memorize the name of that title of that book, or the name of the author. Then they put off the buying. What tends to happen then, they go online eventually when they have a spare time. They Google that title, that author, see that title, read what people are saying about it. Oh, this might be a good title. Then Google sends them to Amazon. Buy that book, and Amazon closes the deal. In the future, web design is one where I believe the bookstore where that discovery happened deserves that business. Okay. So we want people to be able to make, those kind of on-the-spot decisions by being informed in store. So it's things like bringing online reviews into the store itself through tech, through digital. But that's now something we're a long way from, because we haven't been able to engage retailers effectively just yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those interesting things, isn't it? I mean, Amazon for quite a long time have been encouraging people to do showrooming, where you go into the bookshop, discover the book, and then buy it from Amazon right there on your phone. I've done kind of the thing you were describing, where I've gone into a bookshop, looked at a book, thought, I wonder, looked it up on Amazon on my phone, and then bought it from the bookshop. I just use Amazon for the reviews, as you said. If it's something you don't know, it can be really useful to get that, the wisdom of the internet, to give you that context.
Yeah, so we're looking to bring technology into stores that sort of brought that load of information that people would normally use to research a title before they buy it. Wanted to bring that tech into the store. So you're looking at a book on the shelf, there's tech, maybe through your phone that you're pointing at the title, and maybe a shelf app, for example, just give you all the information you need to know, or there's a digital kiosk actually inside that store, very close to the book itself, that's giving you all that information at your fingertips. So these are some of the things we intend to do in the near future, but ultimately we're trying to provide kind of choice to consumers and ultimately help retailers to still continue to use digital and technology to stay in the game.
Yeah. And how technically are you tying the physical purchase to the digital purchase? Because you mentioned at the moment you're kind of doing a bundle purchase, but there's also this thing that you can buy one and then get the other. And how are you managing that?
Right. So at the moment, we are taking on the retailer role by ourselves. Okay. So if you go to the Shulph app or the Shulph website, there is a storefront in there to buy books. So it'll come as a bundle. Okay. So we're doing the bundle bit right now at the moment through the Shulph apps and websites. Okay. But in the scenario where you describe where is it you buy physical and then get a code later? What we're doing is, what we intend to do with that in the future is, if we can get the critical scale, which I believe we can, the idea is that whenever a publisher publishes a title, normally a title could come in different physical formats. So it can come paperback, hardcover, and whatnot. The idea is to introduce a new category to that. We might call it a shelf edition or something. So it will be priced accordingly. Okay. So a shelf edition will not have a code in it, but it will be bound slightly different from a hardcover and a paperback. Okay. And the idea being, if a customer picked up a shelf edition physical book in the store, they're showing the intent that they want to have multi-format access to that title. Okay. Now, when the customer buys the book, they have to break a seal. Okay. Breaking that seal then exposes something like a QR code or some unique identifier that they can then use the Shulph app to redeem. So there won't be any codes as such, but the redeem feature of that title would come prepackaged as part of the publishing run process of that book.
It's kind of a rub-off sticker or pull-off kind of seal kind of thing, as you say.
Yeah, or use once only type QR code.
Yeah.
And so that's the idea. Is it because one of the reasons why, there was a company a couple of years ago, which you would know, called Shulph, that tried to do this thing where customers, buy a book or they own a book and then they can, for an additional fee or even for free, get a digital copy. I think one of the problems with Shulph, and I feel bad for Shulph, is that it felt like two different transactions. It's something people are doing after the fact of already owning the book. That's one of the reasons why I think that's one of the reasons why Shulph struggled, because of that the two-tier transaction. What we're trying to do with Shulph is make it a single transaction. You buy the book once, so as it is today, if you come to Shulph and you buy the book through our app or website, you instantly get the ebook delivered into your mobile device or your tablet, and then you get the physical book a couple of days later arriving at your home. So it's one transaction. And it has to be one transaction. Where the way it is we want to see a future when people think about books, they don't think format, they just think compelling content. Okay, if someone has to think about a physical book and an ebook as two separate things, I think it defeats the purpose of it. It has to be that single transaction, I think.
So you're focusing on, as you say, you're doing the bundle offer of the intention is to purchase a multi-format book. Whereas, as you say,
right.
I mean, obviously, Shulph kind of immediately sprang to mind when you're talking about this stuff, and Bitlit, as they were originally called.
Yeah.
That they've deliberately separated the purchase, and actually, it worked quite well for certain categories. So I have some ebooks I got through Shulph that I'd literally bought 2 decades ago. Because there was no ebook option then, so it was a different proposition. They're now part of Kobo. Be interesting to see if they do anything with it.
With the tech,
But the intention here with Shulph is to do the intentional multi-format purchase.
Yes.
Will you have multi-format things? So you could, for example, I might want an ebook and a print book, but I'm not interested in the audio book.
Yeah, that's right. So at some point in the future, yeah. So we don't do audio at the moment. That's because it's going to make the pricing the pricing is hard enough with just print and by itself. But definitely, we do want to do audio at some point in the future to really round this out. And a few things we want to do with tech with books eventually. Because I think the print book is not going anywhere anytime soon. I don't want it to go anywhere anytime soon. But I think the print book itself can be augmented in so many ways to provide so much.
I always find it interesting when people, as you said, you're coming from a tech industry background, albeit, PricewaterhouseCoopers isn't a kind of startup environment, but, you've worked in a whole series of different environments, and you're coming into publishing, which is not an industry that's renowned for its nimble approach to business. How are you finding that over the last few years? As you've already alluded to, things maybe haven't gone as quickly as you might have liked.
I think there are a few things. So I talked about the slowness, with conversations, especially talking to publishers, and the fact that I think I went in naive with, expecting sort of, rapid turnarounds, quick conversations, and whatnot. I think the thing that has really that I've learned is that you have to play the long game. You have to be patient, but there are times where you have to take the hard decisions and put some things on the back burner and take it on yourself. So as I said before, I've taken on the role of retailer as well. That was never the intention, and I hope to shed off that part of the that part of the business at some point in the future and just become an open platform where people can just discover books across formats and read them across different formats. But yeah, the thing I've definitely initially struggled with is kind of the speed of conversations and the inertia you tend to experience.
Yeah, one of the difficulties, of course, running a startup is you don't want to spend very long pre-revenue, but you've obviously had to spend quite a lot more time pre-revenue than you had planned. I mean, have you had to raise outside investment for that? Where have you got that from?
No. So we're currently 100% bootstrapped.
That's excellent.
Financed by me. So I have another very healthy consulting business that I then use to fund Shulph. And at this point, and to be honest, John, for the first few years, I'm not too worried about revenue. I think the two key things for me is growing our user base, getting them engaged, and then getting feedback from them to see how we can continue to evolve the product. So at this point, I very, very in touch with the people who have, signed up, who have joined, who are using the product. I'm trying to understand how it fits into their lives, at what point are they using it, and then we're bringing all that feedback back into the product. I want to build something that changes behavior at a massive scale, and then I can worry about monetizing that properly later. One of the benefits of self-funding and not taking outside money is you can be bold and take this stance and not worry about investors, calling you at 12 midnight asking what you've done with their money.
Managing outside stakeholders is always fun. Let's shift a little bit and think about that kind of the business side. I mean, I think this is your first startup you founded, isn't it? After working in a whole load of different environments.
It is.
How have you found that this working for yourself? Is this a big shift for you?
No, I don't think it's a big shift. I think in my time at PwC has really prepared me for this.
Okay.
At PwC, you are, as a consultant, you are really given the freedom to go after things in an entrepreneurial way. They always beat it into you to, focus on building strong relationships and strong networks.
Okay.
So I think that entrepreneurial spirit has been something I learned to certainly taken away from PwC over the course over the course of the years that I have been there. So, and I'm still very much, in touch with all my colleagues there.
Okay.
PwC is in fact still a client of mine. Um, and I think working for myself now and being self-employed and running a business has, everything you learn from dealing with clients. I learned from dealing with clients over the last few years at PwC is very useful to me at this point.
And how do you, now that you are doing it yourself over the last few years, how do you go about learning to do that better, to run the business better? I mean, you said, you've got all these networks of other consultants and stuff. Are you going to those people, or are you reading business books? From the sound of it, that was originally what got you into this whole mess in the first place.
Yeah. So, definitely that network. I still get lots of advice from people who are more experienced at running businesses than I am, even from people in the publishing industry itself. I'm a network I've built over the last 2.5 years or so.
Yeah.
So there's some incredible publishing people I've been working with who've become advisors to me, help me navigate the industry itself. But yes, I also read business books. Lots, mainly, running a tech business. So, books like 0 to 1 is a precious one of mine. Masters of Scale is a podcast I follow as well. I think the best book I read last year was probably Blitzscaling by Reid Hoffman. So I'm always reading all these books, listen to all these podcasts as well. And I think the knowledge that comes from there is because I think in tech, especially in tech, a lot of companies in tech try to do things that have never been done before. So usually I think selling these new things are quite hard because it can be hard to describe. Until you put something in front of someone, if they've never seen or heard of it before or have nothing to compare it to, it can be quite hard to sell. So I think focusing mainly on kind of tech business type books helps me when I hit roadblocks, which I get at least one curveball a month.
Yeah. Okay. You've been doing this for, as you say, 2.5 years. Kind of, it's getting off the ground now. When you think about the next 5 years, say, what kind of things are you thinking about to ensure that Shulph is still around and growing? Kind of 5 years from now.
Yeah. So as I said before, the short-term goal for us is to be kind of a multi-channel reading experience company. That's what we are trying to do now. But in the next 5 years, Shulph is the intention is for Shulph to be a platform business. I think ubiquity is something we definitely want to have.
Yeah.
So as a platform business, we want to be able to weave our system into the lives of our users.
Okay.
When we properly platform the business, it'll be one where regardless of where you go to buy a book, whether it's from a physical bookstore or from our digital channels, you will be able to get access to content, right? Where you want to talk to retailers at some point in the future, we want to be able to properly engage into retail stores itself and bring experiences into that place. But ultimately, in the next 5 years, we hope that brand recognition will be there in the physical space, and that when people go into a store, they can make a decision to pick up a book, but also have digital access to it.
Yeah.
Okay. So in the next 5 years, that's what we hope to be. But at this point, the aim is to show that the model works by doing as much of it as we can ourselves.
Yeah.
Taking on the retailer role and working very closely with publishers. But the big vision really for us is to continue to follow the curve of technology itself. I believe that the physical book is not going anywhere anytime soon. But there are things like emerging technology like augmented reality, for example.
Yeah.
I believe that that's going to be big, and I think there are lots of use cases for the physical book in AR itself. For example, you're reading a book, you've got the headsets themselves are becoming glasses really now. You get to a point where you have these untethered glasses that if you have one of those, or even contact lenses, in the future, where you open a book and you're reading it, the experience of reading those books, the physical book, can be augmented by AR. And I think the tech will get there. And when the tech matures to that level, Shulph will be there to take advantage of what that tech is offering.
Okay, that's great. So to move it a little bit now to think maybe a bit more personally, what is it that you find hardest about running your own business? And how do you overcome that?
So the thing that keeps me up at night is, at this point, acquiring users.
Okay.
So it's not that we're struggling with that, but what I really want to understand at this point is to know who is that customer demographic. What is it that defines that customer? The people who benefit the most instantly from Shulph the way it is at this point in its current form. Who is the person that benefits most from it? I'm trying to build a demographic of what those people look like, and then double down on why it works so well for them. Because the tricky thing about growing a user base from a handful to the millions is being able to understand that few and creating something that's so compelling that they love so much that they start just giving you feedback of what you could be adding, because they really need this thing to work for them.
Yeah.
If you can build a handful of users who not just like but love your product, that small devoted user base can become millions. They can then tell other people about what it is that makes this work so well for them.
Okay. And what have you kind of maybe learned about yourself over the last couple of years from doing this? You said, working at PwC was a bit like running your own business, but it's not quite the same when it's, your own money, your own destiny at stake. So what have you learned about yourself from that?
I've learned that I'm quite, how do I describe this without sounding like I don't care? Okay, let me put it this way. I've never quite spent as much of my time or money on anything as I have on Shulph in the last 2.5 years.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Prior to Shulph, I always used to look at people who ran their own businesses as crazy, as how could you invest so much of your time and so much of your money into something you don't know for certain?
Yeah.
We can get back. And having done it myself now, I've realized that actually I'm not any less crazier than those people. Okay?
Yeah.
I'm not any less crazier than those people. And I think the reason why that has worked so well for me and why I'm enjoying it so much is because it's something I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
It's something I'm not really, as an entrepreneur, I probably shouldn't say this. I'm not doing this to make money.
Yeah.
I hope to make lots of it in the future, but I'm just really enjoying it and doing something new that no one else has done before, and seeing that grow and seeing that change people's lives is ultimately, what's getting me quite excited and fired and keep moving on about it. But it is hard. It is difficult. No questions about that.
Yeah.
But that all pales in comparison to the idea that this could be a winner-take-all type business for me.
Finding the thing that you care enough about to be that crazy about. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. And in the face of kind of, as you say, stuff that keeps you up at night, what is it that keeps you coming back every day? Is it that passion for the goal?
Yeah, I think it's that passion for it. It's that, I think I found that thing that could be something world changing.
Uh-huh.
Okay. This idea, I think this idea that all of a sudden books become responsive to the needs of people, and the fact that it's a world first, no one else has done this before. Things like that quite excite me. It feels like something of legacy that I could leave to the world, and that's the thing that really keeps me coming back to it. Even though nearly every day you would hear something or meet someone or speak to someone who says something or does something that makes it feel like, this is stupid. This is not going to go anywhere. But regardless of that, and the other thing that keeps me coming back to it is that books themselves, book and technology, book in technology or technology in books generally isn't hot at the moment.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So it's not VR. It's not AI. It's not blockchain. There's not any of those hot tech spaces. And for me, that feels like a massive opportunity. The fact that people don't see this as hot means I have less competition. So I don't like competition, okay? I don't like to compete. I like to invent my own game and then excel at it. So the fact that it's not a hotly contested tech space is one of the reasons why I've come into that industry as well, because it's an opportunity to grow something large in relatively short space of time. And, as soon as you get into that space and you prove that the model works and you prove that the tech works and you prove that people want this, all of a sudden the competition will heat up. You have a target on your back at that point.
Yeah.
And it just feels like there's an open field to me right now, and I'm just having fun being the only person in there. So that's fun and games at the moment.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's really inspiring kind of note to end on. Thanks so much for your time, Emmanuel.
Thank you, John. Thank you for having me.
This was Talking Through My Hat, a podcast by John Pettigrew, founder of We Are Futureproofs. Please let me know your thoughts by leaving a review at Apple Podcasts or by commenting on the website, myhat.wearefutureproofs.com. You can subscribe to this channel at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Our theme music is from hooksounds.com.